Hi, welcome to this new video, and this one's a bit different as I want to talk about a conversation that has come to the fore with the release of Dirt Rally 2.0, and that's force feedback and what we should be feeling through it. So the main crux of this is around the lack of surface detail that can be felt in Dirt Rally 2.0. This also applies to other titles, and a good example of that is Gran Turismo Sport. Now, before we get into this, what I want to do first of all is break down force feedback into the two key areas that it covers. The first being the grip, so the tyre grip, or as it should technically be referred to, self-aligning torque. In easy terms, when you're cornering, the steering resistance is going to increase, so you get more weight on the wheel as you corner. This increases because the tyre's contact patch is being deformed, and that contact patch being deformed wants to return to its normal shape. So the resistance you feel through the steering will continue to increase as it deforms more and more. Now, the graph you're seeing illustrates this very well. So let's talk about the graph and what it's showing us. First off, the scales. So we've got the y-axis that shows the amount of self-aligning torque at the tyre, which we would then feel as steering weight. The x-axis is the amount of grip the tyre actually has, and finally the plotted points on there show the degree of tyre slip. Now, tyre slip is an important thing to understand because it's the difference in degrees between the angle the tyre is travelling at and the angle the car is travelling at. And there will always be a difference between them due to the fact, so tyre slip is the difference in degrees between those two. And this is due to the fact that tyres and rubber are really ridiculously complex things, and you actually get the most grip from a tyre once it starts to slip. So that slip being the difference between the tyre is actually having to turn more than the car's turning. I'm not going to go into why. There's huge volumes on the physics behind that. Now, how much they'll slip will depend on the tyre itself. So a good example, racing slicks will generate their most grip between around about 4 to 6 degrees of slip. Road tyres will actually generally be different to that, but we're going to just look at race slicks here because that's what the graph itself is based on. Now, just one thing to clarify, of course, this is the front tyres we're talking about, because after this point we're understeering. So this is tyre slip at the front tyres, and that's what's connected to the steering, so this is why it's a valid part of force feedback. So we're talking about the front tyres here. Okay, so with that understood, what we now need to do is look at the graph itself. And what you can see is that the steering weight increases as the grip rises, up to around 3 degrees of tyre slip, after which the contact patch is starting to return to its original shape, and the steering at that point goes light. And you can see from the graph that while the build-up in grip is quite smooth and progressive, the drop-off in grip, and therefore the steering weight, is very rapid and sudden. So your weight builds quite smoothly, almost in a reasonably linear manner, but it then, as soon as it gets past that and it starts returning to its normal shape, the contact patch that is, the grip and the steering weight reduces very suddenly. Now, good force feedback for grip will communicate this as an increase in steering weight followed by a rapid lightening of the steering. One thing to note is that Gran Turismo Sport gets this wrong by throwing in some odd vibration before it goes light, which some try and explain as being tyre hop, and to be perfectly blunt, it's not tyre hop, as that's more commonly associated with rear tyres, and it's also the wrong phase of the tyre dynamics for this occur, because you would need to be well beyond the 6 degrees of slip in this example for that to happen. Tyre hop is caused by the loss and gain and loss and gain and loss and gain of grip on the tyres, and you've got to have properly lost grip for that to happen. So it's not tyre hop causing that in Gran Turismo Sport. Now, what's really interesting is that it's actually beyond this point that the final gains in available grip are found. So with the example on this graph, we're showing that your maximum grip, the point that your tyres are generating the most available grip, is actually at around 6 degrees of tyre slip. And at that point, your steering weight is around 20% of its peak weight. So you're not generating your maximum grip when you've got the most resistance on the wheel. You're actually generating your maximum grip in reality once you've gone beyond that point and the wheel's gone light. So this is where it becomes a really difficult balancing match here. So a good force feedback model in terms of grip will get the lightness part right. A good physics engine in a sim will also see you getting the final gains in terms of grip at this stage as well. And this is also why you see drivers in the real world seeming to soar away at the wheel with little impact on the direction of travel. And that soaring is keeping the tyre between around about 4 to 6 degrees of tyre slip, using this example, and wringing that last drop of grip out of the tyres. So that's one half of what we should be experiencing with force feedback. And in all honesty, with regard to Dirt Rally 2.0, it actually does this really well, far better than the original title did. But what about that surface detail, the second part of the force feedback and the surface detail? Now, this one is a little more tricky, as in the past, force feedback has been used as a route to communicate a lot of what should be felt via the chassis of the car, what is commonly referred to as the seat of your pants feeling. However, some have taken this as to mean that nothing should be communicated in regard to the surface detail via the steering force feedback. And that, in all honesty, is just as wrong. Now, in Dirt Rally 2, we're getting pretty much zero feeling from the track surface via the force feedback, and we certainly should be getting some of it. So what we're looking at in Dirt Rally 2 is a collection of bespoke rally machines that will almost certainly be running rose jointed suspension and steering arms, which means that the rubber or poly bushes have been replaced and you've got metal to metal contact. Now, your poly bushings or your rubber bushings in your suspension and your steering arms are actually one of the big factors in reducing what's going on at the tyre in terms of the vibration part of noise, vibration and harshness, actually the vibration and the harshness side of things, coming through your steering. But they put slack and play in your steering and your suspension, so they've gone in race and rally spec machines because you want that compliance, you don't want that ambiguity, and that means you should be getting more communicated in regard to surface detail via the steering force feedback. And that we're getting what amounts to none is honestly just as wrong as throwing on all of the stuff from the chassis as well. So where we also get nothing in Dirt Rally 2.0 is from the ruts and the trackside debris, stones and bumps and things like that. And all of this should to some degree deflect the steering as the tyre travels over it. And in the case of ruts, we should feel the actual tyre being pulled into it or deflected away from it. And we should also be feeling this more as the stage degradation kicks in, yet it's really weirdly absent from Dirt Rally 2.0. And even on the tarmac stages, we should still be feeling something, as here the suspension should be even harder and therefore communicating even more. And heavily used tarmac roads can also suffer from travel from heavy goods vehicles, winter wear and abrasion, freeze thaw actions, these kind of things, resulting in the surface breaking up, more ruts, more irregularities, more tram lining. Now, tram lining's a good example of this, because tram lining can even affect road cars if they run low-profile tyres. I've personally owned a number of cars that have suffered from this, and on B roads and the inside lane of motorways, the steering, you can sometimes feel it being pulled as the tyres want to follow the direction of tram lines caused by HGV wear and tear. And again, none of this is present in Dirt Rally 2, and the heavily degraded stages visually show an awful lot of ruts, yet we're not feeling any pull, tug or deflection from going anywhere near them. You just ride straight over them as far as the force feedback's concerned. So, and all of this leads into a wider conversation, as whilst it's true that some of the force feedback from surface detail certainly shouldn't be coming directly through the wheel, it's also true that the number of people with a tactile rig are very small. And tactile rigs, what you use to get this non-steering road feel coming through, it actually shakes the seat, sends forces through the seat. Now, I'm personally fortunate enough to be able to get this non-steering feedback via my tactile rig, but the vast majority of people aren't, and as such you can end up missing out on what is valuable information about what the car is doing, regardless of whether it should be there through the steering directly or not. As such, my view is what Title should be doing is, rather than stripping out all of the feedback from force feedback, which is pretty much what Gran Turismo has done, pretty much what Dirt Rally 2.0 has done, is they should be going down the route that the likes of Assetto Corsa and Project Cars have done, and that's give us the option to personally decide what feedback we want to experience via the wheel, whether we want no surface detail feedback at all, whether we want just the feedback that should be coming through the wheel itself from the road surface, or whether we want that and the stuff that's non-wheel related, chassis feedback. And that should be a choice. We should be able to mix and match and balance that. And as I say, Assetto Corsa and Project Cars are two. They're not the only one, but they're two titles that give us the option to play around with those, to add in canned effects or remove them as we want and play around with it. So this is basically just hopefully explains a little bit more about what force feedback should be giving us, why I personally have an issue with regard to Dirt Rally 2 and its force feedback, and explaining why Dirt Rally 2.0 is doing one thing better than the first title, but that shouldn't be used as an excuse to give it a pass on the other just as important side of force feedback. So I know this has been quite a long one and it's me talking a lot, but hopefully it's been useful and hopefully it's been of interest to you. If you've got your own thoughts on this, please do drop them down below in the comments, and if you want to see more like this, please do subscribe away. Thanks very much for your time. Take care. Bye.